The evening sun dipped low over the rugged hills as General Raza's convoy cut through the dusty military
Is our
road,
moment to
its
strike.
engines growling in perfect rhythm.
We cannot
Inside the
falter
lead
now.
vehicle, Raza sat straight as a steel rod, his face carved with years of discipline and command. Soldiers ahead rushed to clear the path, standing at attention the moment they heard the approaching rumble. For many, Raza was more than a general. He was a storm in uniform, known for his sharp eyes, quick decisions, and even quicker temper. No soldier dared make a mistake in front of him, but on that particular evening, something unusual happened, something that none of the soldiers at the checkpoint had ever imagined. About 100 meters ahead of the convoy, an old man, dressed in faded clothes and leaning on a worn wooden stick, slowly stepped onto the road. His pace was calm, almost peaceful, as if he walked in a world untouched by military urgency. He seemed unaware of the fast, approaching vehicles behind him. The soldiers began waving frantically, trying to stop him, but the old man's head remained turned away. The lead driver hit the brakes hard. The tires screeched, dust exploded upward, and the entire convoy came to a halt. A heavy silence spread through the air. Every soldier felt their heartbeat rise, because they all knew what was coming. Before the dust even settled, General Raza threw open the vehicle door and stepped out with a furious expression. His boots hit the ground like thunder, his jaw was clenched, and his eyes blazed with an anger that made even senior officers look away. "Who dares block my path?" he roared, his voice slicing through the tense air. The old man turned slowly, lifting his head with steady calmness. His face was lined with age, but his eyes held a quiet, steady glow. He gave a small bow and spoke softly. "I'm sorry, son. I didn't hear you coming." But his gentle apology did nothing to cool the fire inside General Raza. "You didn't hear?" Raza shouted. "An entire convoy behind you and you didn't hear. Do you know who I am?" The old man simply blinked, unfazed. Soldiers stood frozen around them. Many had served under Raza for years, and they knew his temper well. When he got angry, words were useless. Even his closest aides rarely dared to intervene. This moment was spiraling out of control, and everyone could feel it. General Raza took a step forward, towering over the frail man. His hand curled into a fist, then opened into a palm. His arm rose higher, shaking with fury. The soldiers watching held their breath. Some even closed their eyes. No one dared speak. No one dared move. Just as Raza's hand reached its highest point, ready to strike down on the old man, a young officer suddenly rushed forward. It was Captain Halim. He grabbed the general's wrist midair. The entire checkpoint went silent. Not a single sound. Even the wind seemed to pause. Everyone stared in disbelief. General Raza whipped around, his face twisted in rage. "Have you lost your mind, Halim?" Halim's heart pounded violently, but he didn't let go. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to speak clearly. "Sir, please, don't." Raza's fury now shifted toward him. "How dare you touch me? How dare you stop me?" Halim swallowed hard. He knew what he was doing could end his career instantly. He knew Raza was only seconds away from exploding. But he also knew something that the general didn't. Still holding Raza's wrist, he leaned closer and whispered, "Sir, that man, he is your superior." Raza blinked. His rage faltered for a moment. What?" he asked, voice suddenly softer. Halim straightened his posture. "Sir, that old man is retired Field Marshal Ibrahim Khan." Gasps rippled through the soldiers. Some stepped back, shocked. Others stared at the old man with wide eyes. General Raza slowly lowered his hand. The anger on his face melted into confusion and disbelief. Ibrahim Khan, his superior, the legendary strategist he had admired since academy days, the man whose battle reports were studied like sacred texts. Raza looked again at the old man, but now with eyes that struggled to process reality. The old man's face, his calmness, the quiet dignity he carried, it all suddenly made sense. Ibrahim Khan was known to reject luxury, titles, and recognition. He lived simply, avoided attention, and had disappeared from public life years ago. Raza stepped back, his breathing uneven. Shame, confusion, and shock battled inside him. He had nearly struck the very man whose principles he had sworn to follow. Meanwhile, the old man watched him quietly. His expression carried no anger, only a deep, knowing sadness. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. The old man said softly, "I only came to see how the new generation leads." Raza felt a sting in his chest. His throat tightened. He found himself unable to speak. The mighty general, feared by many, now stood speechless before a humble old man who didn't even raise his voice. At that moment, the once intense atmosphere at the checkpoint became heavy with realization. Every soldier understood the weight of what had almost happened. The silence was no longer fearful, it was reflective. They had just witnessed a moment that would be remembered for years. General Raza finally bowed his head, his voice low and shaken. "Forgive me, sir." And for the first time in a long while, the soldiers saw something rare in their stern commander. They saw humility. General Raza stood frozen, his breath caught somewhere between disbelief and regret. The old man, calm, silent, and gentle, was someone he had almost struck in anger. But now, with Captain Halim's words echoing in the air, the situation transformed completely. The soldiers around them watched with wide eyes, unsure of what would happen next. Even Halim, who had bravely stepped forward, stood with a racing heart, waiting for the general's reaction. The old man, retired Field Marshal Ibrahim Khan, gave a faint smile. His posture remained relaxed, though the years had clearly bent his back and slowed his steps. He lifted a hand slightly, as if brushing away the tension. "It's all right," he said softly. "There is no need for all this. I should have been more careful crossing the road." But to General Raza, those words only deepened the weight in his chest. How could such a legendary figure speak with such humility? He had grown up hearing stories about Ibrahim Khan, the mastermind strategist who saved battalions, the man who trained dozens of commanders, the soldier who refused awards and spotlight. His name lived in military academies, but he himself lived in solitude far away from attention. Raza stepped forward cautiously. "Field Marshal, is it really you?" His voice trembled slightly. The old man nodded with a gentle chuckle. "Yes, though I haven't carried that title with me for a long time. I prefer just being Ibrahim now." The simplicity of his tone struck Raza harder than any reprimand could. He suddenly remembered how, during his training days, instructors would talk about Ibrahim Khan's leadership style. They said he led with calmness, never raised his voice, never used force unnecessarily. He inspired more than he commanded. And now, seeing him up close, Raza realized those stories were not exaggerated. They were perhaps understated. Captain Halim saluted the old marshal with deep respect. Some younger soldiers followed, unsure but overwhelmed by the moment. Ibrahim raised his hand gently, signaling them to relax. "No need for formalities," he said. "I've retired. Let me be an old traveler today." General Raza felt a sting of shame travel through him, remembering how seconds ago he had almost raised his hand at this man. "Sir," he began, struggling to find the right words. "I had no idea." Ibrahim interrupted softly. "Son, anger does not wait for ideas. It reacts before the mind does. That is why one must learn to tame it." His tone wasn't harsh, it was filled with the warmth of someone who had lived long enough to see countless tempers flare and fade. Raza looked down. He couldn't face the old marshal's eyes yet. "I failed that lesson today," he whispered. Ibrahim placed his hand gently over his stick and shook his head. "No, you learned it today." There was something profoundly comforting in his words. The soldiers noticed the change in the air. What had been a moment of fear and embarrassment was slowly transforming into a moment of silent reflection. Raza finally gathered the courage to ask, "Sir, why were you walking here alone? There is no camp nearby." The old man exhaled softly, looking toward the rough hills in the distance. "I heard your battalion had arrived in this region. I was close by, visiting an old friend. I thought I should take the chance to see how the new generation carries the torch." His eyes twinkled slightly. "But I suppose I walked slower than I expected." Raza felt a constriction in his throat. The idea that this man, this legend, had taken the trouble to visit them filled him with an overwhelming mix of gratitude and regret. "You should have informed us," Raza said softly. "We would have arranged a vehicle. I don't need special treatment." Ibrahim cut in gently. "Special treatment is what corrupts leaders. It separates them from the people they serve." Raza's eyes widened. Every sentence from the old man felt like a lesson in itself. Ibrahim continued, Do you know why I never allowed statues, awards, or speeches in my name? Because soldiers don't need heroes they cannot touch. They need leaders who walk beside them, share their hardships, and understand their struggles. That is what shapes a strong army. His words hit deep, not only in Raza's heart, but in the hearts of every soldier present. Captain Halim stepped forward respectfully. "Sir, may we escort you into the camp? It would be an honor to host you." Ibrahim smiled. "If it is not too much trouble, I would appreciate a place to rest for a while. These old legs of mine are not what they used to be." General Raza immediately gestured for the medical team and aides. "Please bring water, prepare a seat, make him comfortable." Ibrahim held up his hand to stop them. "Just a simple bench will do. Too much attention makes an old man uncomfortable." Raza nodded immediately, understanding the sincerity behind the words. He guided Ibrahim slowly toward a shaded area near the checkpoint. The soldiers watched with admiration, not because of the general's power, but because of his newfound humility. As they walked, Ibrahim spoke again, softly but clearly. "Raza, do you know why I came without sending a message? I wanted to see you as you are, without preparation, without formality. Leadership is seen best in moments of surprise." Raza felt his heart tighten. "Then what you saw today must have disappointed you deeply." Ibrahim paused, looking into his eyes with striking calmness. "No, you showed anger, yes, but you also stopped. When guided, a man who cannot be corrected is dangerous, but a man who listens even when he is furious, that man can grow." The words settled deeply into Raza's spirit. The old marshal continued, "Your mentor once told me something. Raza has fire in him, but fire can either destroy or guide ships through darkness. It depends on who teaches him. Today, your young captain taught you." Raza glanced at Halim with respect. Halim bowed quietly, humbled. In that moment, General Raza realized something profound. That leadership wasn't just about authority. It was about growth, humility, and the ability to accept correction even when it hurt. And the man standing beside him, fragile yet powerful, was the very embodiment of those values. Ibrahim Khan had come to observe the new generation, but without meaning to, he had reshaped it. General Raza walked beside Field Marshal Ibrahim Khan with quiet, heavy steps. Every soldier they passed stood a little straighter, their eyes widening with respect for the old legend whose presence seemed almost unreal. Ibrahim Khan moved slowly but gracefully, his wooden stick tapping gently against the ground with each step. Despite his age, there was a strength in his posture, a dignity that made even the bravest soldiers lower their eyes in admiration. They reached a shaded sitting area near the main tent. A simple wooden bench was placed there, and Ibrahim lowered himself onto it with a small exhale. Captain Halim stood nearby, alert and respectful, while Raza remained silently beside the old marshal, his mind filled with thoughts he had never confronted before. After a moment of stillness, Ibrahim looked around at the young soldiers gathered cautiously in the background. "Come closer," he said warmly. "I won't bite. I'm just an old man with stories." Some soldiers smiled shyly and stepped forward. Others joined them, curious to hear the voice of a man whose name lived in academy halls and military textbooks. They stood in a half circle waiting. Ibrahim Khan rested both hands on his stick and began speaking in a patient, steady tone. "Young men," he said, "war teaches many lessons, but peace teaches even more. Unfortunately, many leaders do not learn during peaceful times because they believe their power is enough." Raza felt the words settling on him like soft but heavy stones. He knew without being told that this was meant for him. Ibrahim continued, "A leader must protect, not dominate, must guide, not intimidate, must correct, but never crush." The soldiers listened as though each word carried a hidden weight. The old marshal turned his eyes toward Raza. "Your reputation travels faster than your convoy, General. They say you have unmatched discipline, a sharp mind, a fearless heart, but also a fire that burns too quickly." Raza swallowed, feeling the truth pierce him. "Fire," Ibrahim continued, "is not a bad thing. Fire gives warmth. Fire gives light. Fire pushes soldiers to march even when they are exhausted, but fire must be controlled, otherwise it destroys the very people it is meant to protect. The soldiers exchanged glances. They had seen Raza's anger many times, they had feared it, but never understood how deeply it affected him until now. Raza stepped forward slightly, his voice low. "Sir, I know I have made mistakes. Today showed me more than any report or battle ever could." Ibrahim lifted one eyebrow gently. "Tell me, Raza, why were you so angry when you saw me blocking your path?" Raza hesitated, but answered honestly, "Because I believed a civilian was disrespecting military authority. I was responsible for their safety and for the convoy's movement." Ibrahim nodded slowly. "Responsibility is good, discipline is good, but anger blinds both." He leaned back on the bench, his eyes reflecting memories of years long gone. "There was a time, many decades ago, when I too lost my temper at an elderly man. He was slow, confused, and frightened during an evacuation. I shouted. I pushed him aside. Later, I learned he had lost his entire family the night before. My anger only added to his pain." He paused. "I carried that guilt for years." The soldiers grew silent. Even Halim lowered his head. Ibrahim looked at Raza again. "What you did today, stopping your anger, accepting correction, believe it or not, that is a greater victory than winning a battle." Raza inhaled deeply. Those words reached something inside him he hadn't touched in years. He felt his throat tighten, but he fought to stay composed. Ibrahim gestured to the soldiers. "Let me teach you all something your textbooks never will." He raised one finger. "A soldier's strength is not in his weapon, it is in his heart." He raised a second finger. "A commander's strength is not in his voice, it is in his wisdom." And finally, a third, "A general's strength is not in his rank, it is in his humility." Raza's eyes lowered. Each word felt like a mirror held up to him. Ibrahim then addressed the soldiers directly. "Do not fear your leaders. Instead, help them become better. A leader who cannot learn from those under him is not truly a leader." Captain Halim felt a flush of emotion. He had feared being punished for stopping Raza. Now he realized he had done exactly what a true soldier should do. Ibrahim turned to him with a soft smile. "Young captain, you saved your general today." Halim shook his head quickly. "Sir, I only did my duty." "No," Ibrahim corrected, "you showed courage. Not the courage to fight, but the courage to stand up for what is right. That kind of courage is rare." Raza looked at Halim with a new kind of respect, one he had never shown before. Then Ibrahim spoke again, this time more softly. "Remember, all of you, leadership is a journey, not a destination. Every mistake you make can either teach you or destroy you. The difference lies in how honestly you face it." He turned to Raza. "You faced it today." The general felt something shift inside him, something heavy but freeing. "Sir, thank you." He whispered. Ibrahim nodded. "Good, that means you are ready to grow." The soldiers felt the meaning of those words. They realized they had just witnessed a transformation, not through punishment or orders, but through wisdom, experience, and kindness. The old marshal then sighed gently. "I am glad I came today. I was not here to judge you, Raza. I was here to see you, to see the kind of leaders our country will rely on." Raza knelt slightly beside the bench, lowering his head. "I promise, I will not forget this lesson." Ibrahim smiled softly. "Lessons fade, but character remains. Build your character, General, and you will never again lift your hand in anger." Those words settled into the hearts of everyone present. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the camp. But inside those shadows, a new light was beginning to grow. The sun had nearly disappeared behind the hills, leaving a soft orange glow across the camp as Field Marshal Ibrahim Khan slowly rose from the wooden bench. His back was slightly bent, but his presence still felt towering, not because of his height, but because of the wisdom he carried. General Raza immediately stepped forward to support him, but Ibrahim lifted a gentle hand. "I can stand on my own," he said with a faint smile. "Age may weaken the body, but not the will." Raza nodded respectfully and stepped aside. The soldiers watched quietly, sensing the moment was not yet over, that something important was still left to be said or done. Ibrahim looked around at the faces before him, young men full of discipline, strength, and energy. Their uniforms were neat, their boots polished, their stances firm, Yet he also saw something more: uncertainty, fear, pride, and hope all mixed together. He knew that behind every soldier's stiff posture was a human heart shaped by struggles few outsiders ever understood. He tapped his stick gently and took a slow step forward. The soldiers parted, forming a path for him. He walked a few steps before stopping again and turning to face Raza. "General," he said softly, "you lead a strong unit, but strength alone is not enough. An army that fears its leader will obey, but it will not respect. You must earn their respect, not force it out of them." Raza listened carefully, each word carving itself into his mind. Ibrahim continued in a calm but firm voice. "Fear creates silence. Silence hides mistakes. Mistakes cost lives. If your soldiers are afraid to speak, afraid to correct you, afraid to approach you, then you are fighting alone." Raza felt the truth pierce him like a blade. He remembered moments, many of them, when soldiers tried to explain something to him but backed off, intimidated by his temper. He remembered how often his officers hesitated before reporting bad news. And now he understood why. He had mistaken fear for respect. Ibrahim stepped closer, placing a hand on Raza's shoulder. "Son, leadership is not a throne where you sit above others. It is a weight you carry with them. Sometimes you must be firm, sometimes strict, but always, always human." The general's eyes softened. "I understand now, sir. Truly I do." Ibrahim gave a satisfied nod. "Good, then let me tell you something else." He turned to the soldiers behind Raza. "Men, this general of yours has a fire in him, you know it well." Some soldiers exchanged small smiles, acknowledging it quietly. "But fire is not the enemy." Ibrahim continued, "A leader with no fire is cold and lifeless. A leader with too much fire burns everything around him. But a leader who learns to control his fire becomes a guiding flame." His voice grew softer, almost like a gentle wind carrying wisdom from a distant past. "There will come a day when you are tired, when orders feel heavy, when anger rises without warning. On that day, remember what happened here. Remember that courage is not only to fight the enemy, but to fight your own impulses." Raza felt the words sinking deeper and deeper into him. He knew Ibrahim wasn't just speaking about today. He was preparing him for the future, a future where every decision would carry consequences, where every emotion could either save a life or destroy one. Ibrahim then turned to Captain Halim. The young officer straightened instantly, unsure of what to expect. "You," Ibrahim said with a gentle smile, "are brave. Never lose that bravery and never let it turn into arrogance. Humility and courage must walk together." Halim saluted, unable to hide the pride forming in his eyes. The old marshal stepped back and looked at all of them, his gaze taking in every face, every uniform, every hopeful heart standing before him. "My journey has been long," he said softly, "and yours is just beginning. I do not know what battles await you, but I know this: if you lead with wisdom, fight with purpose, and live with humility, you will always find your way." The camp fell silent, a kind of respectful silence that seemed to hold the very air still. After a long pause, Ibrahim took a deep breath and turned to Raza one final time. "General Raza, today marks not your failure but your awakening. Remember this day and let it shape you." Raza felt something warm rise in his chest. Not pride, not sadness, but something deeper, gratitude. He had entered this day as a commander feared by many, but he felt he was leaving it as a man who understood what true leadership meant. "Sir," Raza said with genuine emotion, "I promise. From this day forward I will be the leader my soldiers deserve, and the man you hoped I would become." Ibrahim smiled, the kind of smile that carried years of wisdom and approval. "Then my visit was worth it." He began walking toward the road again, his steps slow but steady. Two soldiers instinctively moved to escort him, but he waved them back gently. "I came alone," he said. "I will leave the same way." Raza watched him with deep respect. The old marshal's silhouette grew smaller as he walked down the dirt path, the setting sun bathing him in golden light. There was something symbolic in the sight, like a chapter closing or a torch being passed. Every soldier felt it. No one spoke. When Ibrahim reached the end of the road, he turned one last time and lifted his hand in a small gesture of farewell. It was simple, almost invisible, but it held tremendous meaning. Then he disappeared beyond the curve of the hill. General Raza stood immobile for several seconds, his heart full. Finally, he spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. "We will honor him by becoming better." Captain Halim stepped beside him. "Sir, I believe we already started today." Raza nodded slowly. "Yes, today. Everything changed." As the night settled over the camp, the soldiers carried with them not just the memory of a legendary man, but the lessons he left behind, lessons that would shape their lives, their choices, and their courage for years to come. And in the quiet darkness, General Raza felt something shift inside him forever. He no longer wanted to be feared. He wanted to be worthy.